I wonder how many of you, when you hear that parable, remember a Sunday school song. There's one that I remember very well about the wise man built his house upon the rock. Yeah, do you remember that? The wise man built his house upon the rock. It was very easy to remember because the third line was just like the first two. The wise man built his house upon the rock and the rain came tumbling down. Yeah, I can see some of your fingers helping me there. The rain came down and the floods came up, etc. Yeah, it was a very good way of remembering that song. But it's a powerful image, isn't it? This building of our life on rock or on sand. And apparently, at first reading, it seems to invite us to think about our life and particularly our faith in terms of foundation and stability. That's what rock is clearly pointing us to. And many a preacher has challenged us over the years to ponder the strength of our beliefs when the storms of life come. But I want to suggest to you there might be a little more than meets the eye to this. What does it really mean to build on the rock? What does Jesus want us to understand about our faith and its foundation? When we hear the word rock, we might immediately think of certainty, of immovable truths. After all, in our world, certainty feels like security, doesn't it? We crave clarity. We want answers that are clear and final and unshakable. That's true in many parts of our lives, whether it's in science or philosophy or indeed religion. We seek to have everything figured out, to hold our beliefs firmly and to never waver. We often assume, don't we, that certainty is what makes a faith solid and secure. Preferably a systematic faith in which every aspect of life can be put into a box somewhere and clearly understood within the dogma of faith that we have inherited. But is that what faith really looks like? Is that what Jesus meant? Is the rock about knowing everything and being sure of all the answers? Is it a call to build our lives on unwavering certainty? Or is it something deeper? Something perhaps more open? On Sunday, Frank reintroduced us, if we had forgotten, to the writings of Richard Rohr, Franciscan writer of great repute, who challenges us to reconsider this idea of faith being sure and certain and immutable. He compares the way that many of us approach our faith to the scientific method. Scientists, as he points out, are not afraid of not knowing. Let me say that again. Scientists are not afraid of not knowing. They're willing to experiment, to test, to learn. They're always open to new discoveries and to the evidence. Now, yes, science operates in the material world, not the spiritual so much, but its method, its openness to discovery is, I suggest, and Rohr suggests, something we might learn from. Scientists, you see, move forward with an innate sense of humility, knowing that their understanding of whatever thing they're studying at this time, it's open and subject to change in the light of new evidence. They're not afraid to fail, to be wrong, to revise their theories. They build on what they know, but they don't assume that everything is already known. Are you with me? And that, I think, is where faith and science can intersect. It's that willingness to live with mystery, with the unknown, to trust that the journey of discovery is in itself valuable. So let's think about this in relation to our faith. Because so often we do treat belief like a set of facts that we have to defend rather than a living and evolving practice. We insist on knowing everything about God, what God thinks about every single topic. We want to know what God thinks about everything in the world. We have firm and fixed ideas on what he thinks on all the great moral dilemmas of the age, and has the answer to every question if only we will pick up his book and find it there in a verse that happens to suit our particular understanding of the world. We want to be certain that we've got it all figured out. But you know, the problem is, when the storms of life crash around us, we find that our certain faith, for example, in a God who answers our prayers, or the God who protects and shields us from harm, or who fights for us on the battlefield, that faith becomes severely tested. It crumbles away. When the foundations of the faith that we have built around us are undermined, rock can quickly turn into sand. To build on the rock is not to possess all the answers, but to trust in the God who is the foundation of all things, the ground of our being, as Paul Tillich so memorably called him. It's to root ourselves in a faith that is open, humble, and alive, like the scientific method itself, always growing, always learning, always ready for new and exciting discoveries. Jesus does not call us to build our lives on sand, which shifts with every new breeze, but on the rock of God's presence in our lives. That rock is immovable. It's not immovable because it's rigid and unchanging. It's immovable because it's the foundation of trust in the one who holds all things together, seen and unseen. This is the spirit that Jesus calls us to. A faith that's not afraid of doubt or of failure, but is rooted in a trust in God's love, God's grace, and God's presence in the world. We're called to build our lives not on shifting sands of apparent certainty, but on the solid rock of faith that's alive, always growing, always transforming. This kind of faith does not ignore the storms of life. It faces them with courage and hope, knowing that no matter how fierce the winds or how deep the floods, we are still grounded in the love of God. And yet, even as we build on that rock of love, we must remember that rock is not something we possess in all its fullness. We can't hold it in our hands. We can't define it in a precise and mathematical way that we might like to. The rock is God, the eternal foundation of all things, a foundation that invites us to trust even when we don't have all the answers. It's not a foundation of certainty, but a foundation of love. Love that calls us forward. Love that transforms us. Love that invites us to take the next step, even when we don't know exactly where it will lead. When the storms come, and they will come, for that's part of life, we will not fall. Not because we know everything, but because we trust in the one who holds us, who is the ground on which we stand. The rains will fall, the winds will blow, and the floods will rise, but our house will stand, not because we've built it perfectly or understood it perfectly, but because we've built it on love and the grace of God. I hope you've understood what I'm suggesting. I invite you to ask yourself today, what kind of foundation have you built your life upon, your faith upon? Am I, building our lives on the rock of trust, of love, of openness to God's presence in our lives? Or are we building on what turns out in the end to be sand, this rigid certainty, the illusion that we can know and control everything? If we are to build a life that stands firm in the face of the storms, we must build on the rock, not of certainty, but of humble trust in the God who is with us, who calls us to grow, to experiment, to trust in the mystery of life itself. So finally, may we have the courage to build on the rock of faith that's always open to the unexpected, always grounded in love, and always trusting that God's presence will guide us and accompany us through every storm of life. Amen.